I just got done watching Antman and the Wasp, Quantumania, and I got some mixed feelings on it, okay? So I'll get more into that, but let me just start this review off with saying that this is going to be a spoiler-free review. I'm not going to go super in-depth into everything and like go into all the spoilers and stuff. So if you want a full review of this movie, I'm going to be making a video on that a bit later. And the best way to make sure you stay notified for that is to subscribe and hit that bell. So let me just say right off the bat that this movie is better than a lot of what we saw in Phase 4 in my opinion. But it's definitely not great by Marvel standards. It's just average. Mediocre is the best way to describe it. Really quickly, I'll highlight some of the positives, and then after I get into those, I'll talk about some of the critiques and negatives I had with this film. So starting off with the positives, let me just say right off the bat, Kang is a good villain, alright? He's not a great villain, but he's definitely one of the best parts of this movie, and he's definitely, I don't know if I'd go as far as to say upper echelon of Marvel villains, but he's definitely no like scrub trash Marvel villain, okay? So there was at least some attempt at fleshing out a character for him, and he has a somewhat stronger motivation than most Marvel villains, but the points that I will like highly praise for this character is Kang comes across as very intimidating in this film. Like, they did a good job building him up, hyping him up, right? He doesn't show up for, like, the first half of the movie, but we hear a lot about him. We hear, like, things that he has done. We've seen the effect that he's had on the quantum realm, and they just do a good job building him up. So he's built up pretty well, pretty intimidating when he's on screen, and I gave everyone props for that. Kang is a pretty good, intimidating villain. Another thing that I liked about this movie was how the second half is very engaging, and the story's pretty okay if you look past some things, but it's just like a fun movie, like a fun, like, story. There's not really too much more to say on it than that without going into spoilers, but if you're looking for like a fun Marvel movie, this provides that. It's a fun, fast-paced, well, second half is fast-paced Marvel movie. I will also say that Scott's character in this movie is pretty good, and I did really like his relationship with his daughter. It was well done. They had some really nice moments together. It was probably like the emotional weight of the whole movie was carried on those two shoulders, and they did a good job for a Marvel movie. Like, let's not cap, like, Marvel was not known to have like extremely deep, like, emotional moments for characters, but for like a Marvel movie, it was pretty good, okay? The movie was mildly funny, but definitely not something to praise for sure. And that is pretty much all I have for the positives of this movie. There might be some more like smaller aspects, but I'm not really going to get into them here because it's time to get into the negatives of this movie, okay? So let me just say right away that the writing is weaker than I feel like a lot of Marvel movies, or at least movies before Phase 4, and it feels lazy at points. My prime example, I'm not going to spoil anything with this, but there is one egregious example of a Deus Ex Machina that happens towards the end, because the writers almost wrote themselves into a corner with how powerful they made Kang. So they kind of had to come up with some like BS last minute to kind of like save everyone. They try to pull it off reasonably well. They give like an explanation for it, but it's definitely just like some sort of thing that they had to come up with to defeat such a powerful opponent. Because like Kang in this movie, he's extremely powerful, right? And Ant-Man and like the Wasp aren't going to be able to like match the power level of Kang. So they had to come up with some Deus Ex Machina device to kind of help them defeat Kang. So I didn't really like that part of the movie, just because it felt like they kind of wrote themselves into a corner and then gave themselves like a lazy excuse to get out of it. Let me also say that some people might have noticed the CGI for this movie is well, let's just call it straight up how it is. It's pretty bad, dude. It's pretty awful compared to most Marvel movies, even by Phase 4 standards, and that just worries me that we're gonna get like trash CGI for Phase 5 and all the films and shows in that. This was looking like some of the worst like CGI I've seen from a Marvel movie. There's some points of like good CGI, but they're few and far between. Yeah, and like this movie, again, it kind of falls back into the Marvel trope of just like absolutely every single thing is CGI, and that can work if your CGI is good, So, yeah, it's kind of distracting at points. There is some pretty bad CGI. Speaking of bad CGI, there was one character that was like the epitome of bad CGI, and he's played completely off for laughs, right? And yeah, he's kind of funny, but he's also just like an extremely weak character. And he didn't have to be more than just a gag, but I also feel like the writers could have put at least a little more effort into making him not just like entirely a joke. Yeah, I'm just going to put this picture up with no context, and if you've seen the movie, then you get what I'm talking about with this picture here. But, yeah, anyways, let me also just say that all the side characters in this movie pretty much fall flat. The movie manages to make Hope and Hank's presence in the film almost like non-existent throughout the runtime. Like, I genuinely forget that they're there at points. Like, this story definitely is mainly focusing on Scott, his daughter Cassie, and Janet gets some pretty important screen time because she was like in the quantum realm before, so like characters in there know her. But like Hank and Hope pretty much like don't exist for a lot of this movie. And that's just like a problem with all the side characters, because they introduce like side characters, but they pretty much have like no purpose in the movie. It's just, yeah, they're just pretty much empty NPCs, dude. There are some seemingly minor plot holes in this movie, or just things that they glossed over or didn't explain too well, that definitely confused me a bit, but I'm not going to go more into depth onto those because it might lead to spoilers. So let me just say that I was confused a bit because I feel like they didn't do the best of jobs of explaining everything that they needed to, and there might have been some plot holes. I don't know, I might have to go back and rewatch the movie just to confirm that, but it felt, in my opinion, like there were some plot holes. Ant-Man and the Wasp, in summary, is just another generic Marvel movie that didn't do anything to stand out from the middle of the pack. I would say that it's slightly better than Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is a movie that I hardly remember existed, and I probably would have forgotten this movie too if it wasn't for its potential larger implications for Phase 5, especially with Kang. But yeah, this movie's pretty forgettable, just a middle-of-the-pack Marvel movie, generic. Like I said, mediocre is the word to describe it. It's nothing special, but it's at least better than most of the trash that we got in Phase 4. But let's just say that I did not have my faith in Marvel restored from this film. So that's pretty much it for this spoiler-free review. If you want to see my more in-depth review of this movie, keep in mind that it's coming out soon, and make sure that you subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to stay notified on when I drop that video. Let me know what you thought of this movie in the comments, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Have a great day.